Did you know that many world religions believe in the afterlife? But what about rebirth or reincarnation? Today, we are joined by famed author Stephen Hawley Martin as he shares fascinating scientific research about life after death. Okay, so hello and welcome, Stephen. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing great, Leslie. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to our chat.
My pleasure. This is your second time, and I hope that we have you many, many more times. There's something that I just want to share with you that I've observed. And part of me thinks that it's maybe because it's my space and the algorithms that come on my phone. But it's like we're in an awakening now where I've sort of become awakened over the last, let's say, 5 years. I've always been a little more spiritual, even when I was younger. But now it's like I'm just observing that people are kind of getting it and that there's a big, huge awakening. And what do you think?
I think that's absolutely true. I think it's a shift in consciousness, is what I call it, that's going on. It's been going on for a while. I think that shows like yours and the internet is enabling it to get out there. That in fact we are spiritual beings who are having a temporary physical experience, and really that is my message. I've written several books about that. I wrote the first one about it like in 1995, but I've got some new ones out, and I approach it from a more scientific point of view because I think that we're still being taught in school about physicalism and scientific materialism and secular humanism, and all of that is based on a false premise, which is that only matter exists, that there's no such thing as a spiritual dimension. So you're right.
Well, okay, that's interesting that you say that you're taking an approach that approach and are you taking that approach because that's what people, some that maybe aren't quite so awakened, have to accept initially from a scientific approach, a research approach, because otherwise they're just simply gonna think that it's false.
Exactly. I think that if I were to approach it, I've had a number of kind of like paranormal experiences. I've had a very brief near death experience. I had a what would be called a mystical experience where I felt that I merged with the infinite mind, with the cosmic mind. But if I just talked about that, people would think I'm crazy. The ones who have bought into scientific materialism, physicalism, and so I approach it from, hey, quantum physics. Max Planck, the guy who created quantum theory, won the Nobel Prize for it in 1918, says that we can't get past consciousness, that consciousness is the ground of being, that he called it the divine matrix. There's a mind, uh, intelligence, conscious intelligence that is behind everything. Einstein said, he had E equals mc squared. Everything is energy. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. There is no such thing as solid stuff as people think of it. It's really all conscious.
Absolutely. They are not teaching in schools right now anything about vibration or anything about energy. In fact, I have a son who is in his 30s, his mid 30s. And just the other day, I was talking to him about matter and the vibration of matter and just about energy. And that even something that is like a rock actually is not necessarily solid, a rock or a hard table, that everything is based on energy, and I said, "I learned that in the 6th grade." And he goes,
Yeah,
"That's not what I learned in the 6th grade." I said, "Well, what were they teaching you in the 6th grade?" He goes, "Not that. We learned a little bit about density, but that was it. Nothing to do with, let's say, quantum theory or quantum physics or quantum mechanics. Nothing." He goes, "No, nothing." So my 6th grade is nothing like what his 6th grade was. So imagine what they're teaching kids now.
oh, I know it, and it's really a shame because we are so much more than what we a lot of us think of ourselves. and in fact, probably really only a small portion of us incarnates at any time, maybe 20%. And there's a whole lot more to us than we're really probes that are sent out by what I call the source, this mind that Max Planck was talking about that's behind everything. And we're really, as we are uh, probes, we're connected to it, we're still part of it. When I had that mystical experience, that experience of mystery, I connected with it. It's the only time I've ever really connected. Was very much like a near-death experience where I felt love, I felt complete. Whatever I thought about, I knew everything about. It was just
Mhm.
absolutely amazing. Very, very hard to describe or put into words, but that we're all part of that, and each one of us, if we do practice meditation, I think, eventually we can make that connection. So there.
Do you
Go
believe that
ahead.
people I'm so sorry, that people in that we've lost some of our intuition? We're just taught to not rely on our own intuition, to rely on what we can physically see, to rely on other people to take care of us, to rely on even our security to everyone else. And we sort of have lost our intuition. So when we think things like, I just saw something maybe I shouldn't see, we tell ourselves, no, we didn't see that. So we,
Absolutely, absolutely. 'Cause from the time we're children, because we're taught in school that that matter is all there is, and that these kinds of things cannot happen. We're taught that and told that by our parents, by our teachers, and so we do lose it. Little children are much more intuitive, much more in connected to where they just came from, which is the spiritual world, the world, the mind that
right.
I've been talking about. They've just gotten here. It reminds me of a poem by Wordsworth, I think, who said it starts out, "Trailing clouds of glory do we come from the other side." But by the time and the poem goes on and on, by the time we're adults, we're all jaded, and we think that we know everything, when in fact we've actually lost that ability to connect.
Yeah, it seems like that is the world. What do you think is the advantage for society, for cultures, for countries, for the world leaders to make people not believe in what truly is? What's the advantage to people
And
not awakening? Let's say that.
well, they were easier to control. I think we have to have the government take care of us, so that keeps them in power. I mean, if we realized who we are and that we're really all part of this one mind I'm talking about, that we're all connected. One of the fundamental things that comes out of quantum physics is there's nothing is truly separate. There's no place where this energy stops and then starts, where the vibrations stop and then start. We're all part of it. We're one life that's experiencing uh, that one life from different points of view. And when we realize that, we're going to start being, I think, nicer to each other. When people have near death experiences, for example, most of them, if it's a really full blown one, will have a past life review where they'll see all the decisions they made, the good ones, the bad ones, where they could have gone in one direction or another direction. And they also experience what other people experience based on their words and actions. So if everybody knew that, don't you think they'd be nicer to each other?
Yes, of how my actions might affect somebody negatively if I know that during my review that I have to experience all of that, that might induce me. I would like to think that would just be nice anyway.
Yeah.
But that would might be, part of an inducement. I was reading your recent writings and I just found it absolutely fascinating. But there was something that you referred to as called remote viewing.
Oh, well, yeah.
And it makes me wonder if we do that while we're sleeping and dreaming. What do you think?
I think we do, especially when we have lucid dreams. If you've ever had a lucid dream, I've had a number, and you really are going into that field when you're having a dream like that. And remote viewing it's amazing to me. I've interviewed two remote viewers who are very accomplished at it. One guy named Skip Atwater was the fellow who put together a unit called Stargate for the U.S. Army, and it was part of the U.S. Army's intelligence operations back in the Cold War in the late 70s into the 80s. And they recruited soldiers who had certain characteristics and taught them how to remote view and spy on the Russians, the Soviet Union, and the East Bloc countries, and apparently were very successful doing that. Well, here's a unit of the government using psychics to spy, and yet we're still teaching this thing where
I
uh, your consciousness stays inside your head and can't possibly be anywhere else when it's not true. We're really non-physical beings who are experiencing this reality through our senses. And unless we can remote view or have lucid dreams, we don't realize that it is possible to view things outside of our senses, to develop our sixth sense. What do you think about that, Leslie?
Well, I think that it's really interesting that even our government, probably every government, in the world knows that this exists, utilizes this power that anybody could have, but they take special people and develop it. But they don't want the general public to know that this is something that is possible because they may want to venture out, and that could cause a little lack of control of what they want to control. I find it really fascinating that we connect many people connect their consciousness with their bodies. They are their body. Their mind and their brain is their consciousness. When you are born, it is created at that very moment in time. And we put so much focus on our I call it body, body, body. We dress our bodies. I consider our bodies a vehicle, basically. It's something that where we can feel, we can touch, we can create, but we dress it up, we fix it up, we change it, we alter it, we demand other people like it, we use it to impress. We take our bodies and we travel somewhere to get in another vehicle to travel somewhere else, only to get into another vehicle that we pick out in a car lot if we're renting a car, another vehicle that we're picking out maybe to impress, to drive around, to visit other vehicles, and then to go back through. It's like vehicle, 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 but we're our bodies. There's so much pressure that we are our bodies. And
Well,
and
I was going to say I see our bodies as being like it might be compared to a diving suit that you use to go down under the water and visit a shipwreck or something like that, because that's what our bodies are, a vehicle that our consciousness uses to come into this reality. We come in through our mother's birth canal and we stay here for 70 or 80 or 90 or 100 years, and then we go back where we came from. And I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, but it's a fact.
I absolutely do. I
We've
mean,
all lived many times and probably will live many more times.
I try to figure out who people are. Uh, like my granddaughter, for example, is so curious about her grandfather who died 15 years ago. She's 4 years old and it's almost an obsession. She wants to know him. She wants to see pictures. She wants to know every single imaginable thing about this man that she has never seen. She only knows him through my son, who is her father. And I looked at her one day and her behaviors, and I realized who she is.
She is,
So
she is.
I wrote a note to my son. I said, you know that she's Grandma Peggy, right?" And he wrote back, "Maybe." That's all he wrote back. So he's not quite ready. He's pretty open-minded, but that's not something that he would share with somebody else. So it's very, obvious to me who this child is, and now that I know, I react to her like I did when I was, physically with her grandma, spending time with her grandma, and I just think that it's totally fascinating, how long she waited, before she wanted to reincarnate.
Yeah, well, she was probably looking for the right right opportunity, and that with your son was a perfect one for her, I'm sure.
Now, I
To
found it interesting that your guy, Frank, that you spoke to in your recent writings, um, chose women that his father, I believe, Sam,
Mhm.
but Frank knew that Sam wanted to come back. I think that's how it goes. I'm so sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he ended up choosing women that ended up, getting, getting rid of the birth until he finally found somebody. Till Sam was like, "Okay, you know what? You're choosing these stupid women that are boarding me all the time. I'm gonna go pick someone else and connect with you that way." And I found that that was really interesting because I always thought that everyone always stayed within their family. Do you think?
Well, but it worked out because, when Frank went in, was back, he had been married but was divorced,
Okay.
and, he'd had these girlfriends who got pregnant and aborted the, the
Yeah.
fetus, but he met this woman who was a recent, who had a child, a 2-year-old, but, had was a widow. Her husband had just died, and so they kind of clicked, and he had a date with her, and he picked her up at her house, and walks into the house, and the little girl who was about two immediately said, "Dad, Dad, Daddy,"
Wow.
and
Wow.
they ended up getting married. By the way, his daughter, Frank's daughter, who he is convinced is his father reincarnated, just graduated from Washington Lee University. So she's now in her early 20s.
Yeah, no, I love that story, and it was I think it was interesting, but my part of it was that he actually connected. He must have had some connection with somebody that wasn't, like, in his family line. I can tell you from personal experience, I recall being 5 years old, sitting on the edge of my bed one morning, just sitting there thinking all by myself, and my thought was, "I am so happy that I was born a girl this time."
That's
And I
good.
always remember thinking that. I thought, "Why would I think such a thing?" But I was so happy to be a female. But what that brings me to is that people, can reincarnate as females or males. And I think that there's a lot of confusion in this world right now where people believe that they're born in the wrong body, where you chose that body. You're not born in the wrong body, you just have to, accept it.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a big, huge issue and problem right now because part of them are right, I suppose, they're more familiar with male bodies and now they're in a female body and they're just sort of adjusting to the different, what comes with the body, hormones and all that. But I don't know why somebody would want to alter, what they chose. What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, I think that they did choose to do that. That probably and certainly, the University of Virginia has been studying children's memories of past lives for 60 years, and they've got over 2,500 cases. And uh, what happens is somebody decides they want to experience this reality now. Let's say they've been a man or a boy for several incarnations. They're very much into that, and they think, well, it's time to try it as a woman. And then they get here and they don't feel like a woman because they haven't been a woman for the last 6 lives, and so they want to switch back. That's what it is. They
Okay.
I think they forgot. We all go through the veil of forgetting, all except these children who do remember past lives go
Mhm.
through a veil of forgetting for a reason, which is that if we knew what we knew before we got here, we wouldn't be learning and experiencing things. It'd be like having the answer to the test before the cheat sheet when we sit down to take the test. We wouldn't really learn anything or experience things the way we do. The fact that we start out with a blank sheet, but because of that, they're feeling more like they're a man in a woman's body, and so they want to switch. They want to go, get fixed by a doctor,
Right.
Gee, they
And
ought to.
that doesn't seem to bring any happiness. I haven't read
No,
any
no, it
studies
doesn't.
or
They ought
results.
to just try to go with it, but who am I to say?
What, 70 years? What, I mean, you're gonna get a do-over again, you know? Pick differently, the next time, but I think the point is experiencing what it's like in that in the body that you chose. I follow, Dolores Cannon and her teachings, and it makes me think, to myself, why are we here? If we have these beautiful spirits and everything is love, why do we choose to go into a physical form? And her explanation is simply that it's so that we can feel, touch, and have senses, but mostly it's to create. That is our purpose, to create. And and to help also awaken other people. And so that's what I like that you're doing with this TV. Tell me a little bit about the TV network that you're going to be partnering with and the show
Yeah.
Road to Higher Consciousness.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, I've teamed up with a production company that does programs for PBS, public television, and it's called Good All Over TV. They have a show that's on now. I think it's in their fourth season, called The Good Road. And so we're going to do a show called The Road to Higher Consciousness, where we're going to be interviewing people. We're going to be bringing out this information that you and I have been talking about, about children remembering past lives, about quantum mechanics, pointing to the fact that the ground of being, that everything is consciousness, that there's one mind, the divine matrix. And our goal is to get the facts out and to speed up and enhance this shift in consciousness that we feel like is going on right now, that you're experiencing, that I'm experiencing, that probably your viewers and listeners are experiencing. We want to add to it. So if you want to find out, if you're watching this day now or listening to it, you can go to my website and find out more about it. It's my website's shmartin.com, shmartin.com. And I hope you'll do that. Maybe send me an email through the contact page and tell me what you think about it.
And what can people are people going to help? Do you need help? Do you need people to participate, to share their
Well,
stories? Is there
yeah.
anything else that people can do to make this happen?
Well, we're trying to raise some money as well. I mean, we're pretty far along on that, but they can help out by making a contribution. But also tell us if you have a story, or if you think that there's somebody in particular that would be a really good spokesperson for us to interview. Let us know that. And what if you've become recently enlightened about the true nature reality? What was it that brought you to that, so that we can maybe tell that story? Yeah, come on to my website and
Yes.
tell me what you're thinking.
Okay. Well, what we're gonna also have the information, written out below so that people can contact you and and maybe be part of this program. So, Stephen, thank you so much. I just love talking to you, and I think that what you're doing is wonderful. I have been reading your books, which are just absolutely phenomenal and a life changer. So, I appreciate you and I appreciate what you do. So, thank you.